Ladies and gentlemen, today on the Rockfeed podcast, we have a very, very special guest from one of my favorite metal bands of all time, truly one of the best frontmen in metal, in my opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesse Leach, thank you so much for being here.
High praise. Thank you so much. Good to be here.
100%, man. The new album, This Consequence, is out everywhere now. The first record in like 5 or 6 years, I want to say.
Yep.
Phenomenal. I've been jamming it on the way down here. You know, talk about one of the things that really struck me about this record and every record you guys have done this far into your career, the commitment to quality. You can sense it from the record.
Yeah.
You know, talk about the process of like, it seems like you guys really, really scrutinize everything you do to make that polished product.
Yeah, we do. And I want to say, I think this one was next level. Usually how it goes is everyone will submit demos, Ab and I kind of work on them, a little bit of pre-production, and then just get into the studio and go. This one was very much a group effort, you know, submitting demos, everybody, and then me doing pre-production and sending them back before it even was a thought of, could this be a song? And I'm going to say, I think the first 8 or so were rejected. And it was like, yeah, it was like not up to snuff. Somebody had a problem about something. So it was the collective, all 5 of us had to be stoked on the song, lyrically, sonically, everything. So that process was difficult at first, but I look back on it and I'm really happy we did it that way. It forced me to come up with better lyrics, I think, come outside of my comfort zone, stir up some anger and frustration inside me, which was good because I kind of didn't really know where I wanted to go lyrically. Coming out of the pandemic, everything that's going on in the world, I felt kind of numb when I started this record. So I think I defaulted into like, this is what I usually write about. And the guys were like, come on, man, like, give us better. And which I'm glad, like,
yeah.
God, you should do that. The worst thing in the world, especially, you know, this point in your career, is to put out a record that doesn't feel passionate.
Yes.
It doesn't feel raw and real. And to me, I tapped into this inner righteous anger that tells a story that I think needs to be told right now because we're living in such divisive, crazy times. We need therapeutically anger and also a righteous anger to push us to like open our eyes and make some changes and, you know, re-inject the passion back into your life because I feel like we all feel drained at times. Yeah. It's a frustrating time to live through. So I channeled all that, and Broken Glass was the first song that everybody was like, oh yeah, that energy, more of that.
Because that's a pissed off song.
It is an angry song about abuse. It's written from the eyes of the abused, talking to their abuser. And what I like about that song, if I may, is it's kind of like reading a book and I ripped out a few chapters. It doesn't tell you exactly what happens, but at the end, it's like, now I watch as you collapse. So you know there's some revenge going on, but
yes,
I don't say what it is. So it's kind of a story. And that was the first song that was like, the fire was lit. It was like, there it is. Go that direction.
I got to tell you, it's apparent that you guys really put so much care into these albums. And I like the kind of commitment to excellence that you guys have always had, because I feel like maybe some bands are too agreeable and they don't push each other enough. Yeah. I think there is a certain positivity to like the guts it takes to say, hey man, we don't like this as much. Do you take that feedback well, or does it piss you off sometimes?
I mean, it can upset me, but at the end of the day, it's not about me, it's about us. And I will say this, I think because of this record, it's caused us to, as friends, become closer. We've been able to have conversations that, even if it's slightly difficult about this part not being good, or, you know, last night you messed up this part. It used to be difficult to hear that, but I think the older I get and the more that we have these types of conversations, quality control is just because people care. It's not like they want to make you feel like an asshole.
Yeah.
My friends want me to be a really good singer and a really good lyricist, so they're going to push me because they know I have that capability. So it's really helped the relationship as a band. I feel like I look on stage and I feel like we're all on the same level because of it.
You guys have always seemed to be that way. I just can't say it enough. What a phenomenal live band you guys are as well. You talk about the times we're living in, and when I listen to this album, one of the things I love is the track I Believe. And you're not a lot of people are talking about unity, and you have not given up that sense of optimism, which I love. Telling people, hey man, we can be together. We don't have to hate each other.
Right.
See through that.
Yeah.
You know, I love that message.
Yeah, it's ingrained in me. One of my favorite bands of all time, Operation Ivy, they have a song called Unity, and it's one of the lines is, ain't nothing wrong with another Unity song. So to me, I hold to that. Every record, there's got to be at least one song about unity. And that was, coming out of all the anger and frustration I was writing through, that was the first one that sort of the clouds parted. And I was like, okay, there it is. I heard the demo, and I was like, I think Joel wrote the initial riffs for that. And I just felt it in my heart. Harkening back to early U2, like I love early U2 before they went super, super poppy, up until like Joshua Tree. They had these songs that made you feel like you could overcome the enemy, like rise against.
Is this like Sunday Bloody Sunday?
Yeah, totally, yes.
Epic.
When Bono had the white flag on stage, like in the 80s, I looked at that band very young, being like, I would get chills, but that's really cool what he's doing. I didn't completely understand because I was young, but that's kind of what was going through my head when I heard that song. I was like, how do I write a song that champions us coming together? And why I think that's important, it hopefully will open up a conversation, and I talk about it every night on stage, where we need to realize this is a class war that is going on. It's not about you being left or right. All of the left-right things that are happening are to distract us and keep us divided. And I've met people from different spectrums, people who vote for Trump, people who voted for Biden, people who care about these politician figures, which to me is, I just don't understand the love of these billionaires that could really care less about us. They pretend to, but I've met people on all these spectrums, and I realize, and I say it a lot, we have a lot more in common than we do differences. The differences are small, and if you just were civil enough to actually have a discussion, you might realize, oh, this person was raised this way. They believe this. They pray to this God. They're this sexual orientation. That's what drives them. And that's small parts of their personality. But the majority of all of us, we're good people. Like,
yes.
The more I travel, the more I can tell you, most people are good people.
I agree.
It's these little shit starters on either side that are literally doing the job that they're being conditioned to do to keep us divided. And I'm not out here flying a flag or saying, vote this or vote that, or I don't have an agenda other than think for yourself.
Yeah.
Be compassionate. Don't be a jerk, and try to meet people where they're at and actually have a conversation instead of jumping online and arguing and saying awful things.
Yeah.
Have the balls or the guts to get face to face with someone and get to learn who they are.
Yeah.
They might even change your view on something or make you think about it differently I never thought of it that way before. I don't agree with you, but I can understand why you would think that way. And I know that's like a fever dream, but that's what I'm pushing for. To me, my revolution is pushing against the status quo, pushing against those people, those billionaires who are, pulling the strings of these politicians to create this divide, rule, and conquer, to keep us sick, to keep us dumb. I'm against all that stuff. And I want people to see that there is another way.
I couldn't agree with everything you're saying more, and I really appreciate you saying that. I appreciate that there are people out there that haven't given up hope on hating each other and mad over politics. People severing friendships, longtime friendships over...
Well, we saw it happen with COVID, too.
Yeah.
People, families don't even talk anymore because somebody was, vaccinated, unvaccinated. That was where this all really started, I think. People, if you look back on that, it was a really awful time.
Agreed.
And, I can still have a discourse about that, but back then you couldn't question it. It was like,
it changed a lot.
You're either this or you're that. And now we're seeing all these evidence of maybe we did rush into that a little bbit, and maybe there is a conversation we should have had. But I think fear, it all comes down to fear for me. And fear is a main thing that I talk about in my lyrics. Collusion's a song I could cite about, you look at the video, it's very 1984, sort of They Live. I'm trying to get people to just think for themselves.
Yes.
And to not live in fear, because fear is what is going to cause you to hate somebody. What's going to cause you to act in that fight or flight response that we saw. So I think we're in a PTSD phase of life, especially in this country. And I'm just trying to give people some therapy so they can hopefully start to heal a little bit.
Well, I appreciate the optimism that you're putting out there into the world very much.
I know about it.
And I got to tell you, I've been listening to your music for decades now, and you guys just seem to get stronger with time. I mean, the longevity that Killswitch has had is a testament to that quality control. People are still and always excited. You're not dropping a new record every 2 years. I know you guys put your heart and soul into this album, and it shows. What does it mean to you, you know, that young man who first got into a band and like started and was like, where's this all going to go? If you look back to the very beginning, and you guys are still going strong. We're here in Greensboro, North Carolina. You guys are on an amazing tour with a kick-ass lineup of bands. What does that mean to you to still be doing this all these years later?
It strikes me almost on a daily basis how fortunate we are, how blessed we are. And I feel like I've outlived the dreams I had or the goals and aspirations I may have had as a young man. I've so far surpassed it that I feel like I'm living in this bonus life where it truly is like astounding to me that I still get to do this and wake up, you know, even just this morning, you know, I woke up exhausted and opened up the window and there was sun. I'm like, oh, where am I? Like that feeling of like, I'm going to go explore, check out what's going on, meet new people. I love it. And then to see the impact what we have on people, to me, that if there's anything I could say, it is the fans, it is the audience, it is our friends, the people who support this band. That's why we're still going. That's why we still get to do this. So that's on my mind on a regular basis. And even when I'm on stage, I'm present to it. I try my best every night. And I'll even put my microphone in my back pocket and just stand in front of this audience and like put my arms out and just like, thank you so much. Putting that out without even having to say a word. I think using that body language, you look at me with gratitude. I'm giving you gratitude back. That's everything. That energy, that there's nothing like it, man. That's what keeps me going, that connection.
Y'all have this really raw energy to your live performance that you've always had. That's just like, it's very unique to Killswitch, I would say. What do you think it is about your live show where you guys just, I've never heard someone say, I went and saw Killswitch and it wasn't good. I've never heard someone say that. What do you think it is about y'all's chemistry on stage?
Well, like you said, it's real. Like it's dudes playing instruments. There's no computers. We have like a sample thing that, you know, does stuff from the record, but what you're hearing on the record, we do our best to imitate that live without tracks. Like, no offense to bands who run tracks, but for us, it's a point of pride that we don't do that. And that's why you're going to get, like, you know, if I'm a little tired, you're going to hear it. I have, you know, years where I was a raging drunk and you could hear it in my voice, and I had the surgery in 2018. So for me, like 2018 forward, I've been like hyper focused on getting better as a vocalist, because live, you're going to hear my flaws.
Yeah.
And that's good. I like flaws personally.
Agreed.
A lot of the music I like to listen to is got that edge to it, whether it's, you know, punk rock or rock and roll or hardcore. I like when you can hear this went a little sideways here, and people keep it on the record. That's cool. But that being said, that's not Killswitch. The record's squeaky clean. The live performance is the best that we can to get there, but it's never going to be perfect. And most of the time when we get off stage, it's not immediately a good show. It's like the list of grievances. And it's brutal sometimes. And sometimes I'm like, not now, just wait. We'll talk about it in a minute. Just let me bask in the afterglow of the show. But, you know, we even have our sound guy record, and we have to listen to the recordings. And if I messed up, if I messed up, I got to listen to it. And
like game film, like you're like the Patriot or something.
We do that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I have a bad night, I hear about it, and the next day I'm like, sorry guys, I know that, but I know what I have to work on. So come the next night, I'm not screwing up that part.
That's pro stuff right there.
Yeah.
That's insight.
Very annoying, but you know, I wouldn't have it any other way. Again, it's just we care that much that quality control stays high.
Yeah. I think that's brilliant, and it's a testament to your success. You know, talking about like the differences in kind of in music these days, we're entering into this hyper digital era. Technology's, you know, rapidly evolving. I have kind of a theory that I think, you know, truly original music is going to be more appreciated in this kind of fake AI music era. Do you have any thoughts on like what you think like the impact of AI is going to have on music, if anything like that? Like, it seems crazy to me.
It is wild. You know, for me, there's nothing better than, and some of the stuff I really like to listen to out on the road is a person with an acoustic guitar playing a song. And you can hear the finger, you know, scratches on the strings. You can hear the voice kind of go a little bit, like a live recording of someone playing an acoustic guitar and singing. And that's it. that's some of my favorite stuff to listen to, because you're getting the human element.
Yeah.
AI, even the videos I see on Instagram, you know, if I'm scrolling and I see an AI video, I just get slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, some of it is cool, and I get it's a tool we can use, but I'm still uncomfortable with it. You know, I'm a child of the 80s. You know, I mentioned 1984. I mentioned They Live, you know, all those science fiction movies, Matrix, trying to warn us, you know, Terminator. Like, we're already there. We're there already, which is wild to me.
Vast.
And I'm not, you know, a curmudgeon that's like, no AI. AI can be used as a tool to help with little things. But as far as creativity goes, I can't ever see myself using it. I just love being an artist.
Yes.
Whether that's just writing the lyrics, or even, you know, drawing on a piece of paper, doodling, or coming up with the logo, or whatever it is that makes me happy as an artist. I don't want that taken away for the sake of convenience, because then it becomes something that you're doing to speed up the process to probably get money, I'm assuming. I don't know, but it's leading us down a very strange path. And I don't shun it, but I think we need to be really careful with what's happening, because it's wild. It's very wild. Like, that Chat GPT is wild.
It's like alien technology or
It is.
something. It's bizarre.
And you can ask it questions. And my thing too is, like, because it's digital and not in print, you know, you can read a book, it can change. So the definition of things can change without us even realizing it. And that's, to me, where things get a little scary.
Yeah, when they have their own like slant instead of like being factual, like you can program biases into it. And
How do you know what you're getting is the truth? You don't know. I don't know.
how are you going to even be able to tell that you're interacting with a real person? You know, like these avatars that look photorealistic, and the AI videos to me is just absolutely shocking. I'm like, how are you you're going to be able to generate generative AI. You're going to be able to generate a movie with the type of plot, make a science fiction movie for me to watch that's a 99% Rotten Tomatoes score.
Yeah.
It's really bad. And that was the thing they were protesting about when they went on strike out there, is like, hey, don't use AI to replace this in films. And I very much support their efforts against that.
But no, good luck to everybody. And, you know, it's a weird thing to navigate. And I guess for me, the human element will always be something that will come through.
Yeah.
Whether that's music or film or writing or whatever. You know, even like people who are using AI to write songs, like, that's wild.
Yeah.
And I feel like you can kind of tell sometimes, because of the words they use that generate it. Just, I don't know.
You can tell AI, but you can also tell like stuff that's like super guitar pro. Like, you know, you can, if you're a computer nerd, like sometimes you can tell like stuff that's been really engineered through the computer versus like live in a room or whatever. How do you guys, when you're putting a song together, do you guys jam in a room? Is it remote? You know, like, how do you?
It's both. It's usually remote, but for this record, it was the first time that we actually got into a room together.
That's sick.
And jammed. And I sat there and watched as the songs were being created. And that energy took me through. And I would remember, oh yeah, I remember this song. And I remember when Justin was playing that part, and it did affect the energy of the recording and my writing. I would do it again. I think it's something that any band, if you haven't done it in a long time, because it's easy when you're touring, you write a record, you tour. It's easy just to send an email and someone listens to the email and then you add your part. But to get into the same room and actually create together, it's cool. It's something I highly recommend.
I think it shows on this album. You mentioned dealing with vocal issues, man. I got to tell you, as a vocalist, and even someone who talks on the internet or whatever, losing a voice is scary.
It is.
It's the way you make a living. It's the way you share your art with the world. It's your legacy. You know, what's it like? I feel a lot of empathy for that, because like, what is it like going through something where your money maker, so to speak, doesn't work anymore?
It's depressing, and it makes you feel super insecure. And I've dealt with that for a long time, because having lack of technique, you know, as I'm talking to you right now, I warmed my voice up just a little bit. Melissa Cross is the Zen master who taught me. I owe her everything. And she was there when I was recovering from my vocal surgery as a friend.
Amazing.
And she's incredible. And her techniques have helped me. So we just did 4 shows in a row, day off, show, day off, 4 in a row. This is the 4th of 2 4 in a row back to back. I'm okay. Old me, I wouldn't even be doing an interview. I'd be quiet. Days off, I would have to stay quiet the entire day. Like, learning technique and learning how to mix it in with what I do without sacrificing the genuineness of my voice. It took a long time to figure that out, but it's worth it. It's totally worth it. And I had to change my lifestyle. I had to really be careful with late nights. Don't go to bars that are loud, getting your sleep, staying hydrated, drinking a lot less, just taking care of my body, because if you're inflamed and you got a lot of mucus, that's going to affect you. So I stay super healthy. I'm on a regimen of like teas and vitamins, and
You can tell you look to be in really good shape.
thank you. Yeah. I lost weight. I'm known, used to be pretty bloated from my diet, but yeah, I cut out. And everybody's different. Whatever, eat what you want, but I eat organic food. I don't have dairy because dairy creates mucus.
How do you do that on the road, bro? Processed food is everywhere. I hate that.
Well, we have catering on this store, which is the first one we've actually got catered. So we have pretty decent food. And also, you know, on days off, I'll go to like a health food store and buy my stuff. And
Smart.
if there's nothing to eat that doesn't agree with me, I'll do grains, granola, fruits. I'll eat simple salads. I'm making food constantly, or going to healthy places and getting a juice in the morning. Like, I'm very healthy for the most part out here. It helps big time.
That's inspiring, and I need to step my health game up then, obviously, clearly. What about your workout regimen?
So light weights, just so these things don't get flabby. I'm not, you know, total weightlifter, but being on the road with Kubla Khan helps. Those guys
are jacked.
Gym rats, and
Let's go.
but they're really like positive. I did one session. I wish I could have done more. I'm on a text thread that's just dudes finding a gym and working out together. I did it once. I haven't had time because my schedule's nuts. But when I went with those guys and they showed me what they do and their camaraderie and their encouragement, like, those guys are awesome. And it was really inspiring me, and I learned a few things. But for me, it's maintaining, you know, a body that is not in pain. I think that's my main thing as an older guy now. I just don't want to walk around in pain all the time. So it forces me to do, you know, every morning I do a yoga stretch before I get out of my bunk even. I do, you know, just stretching all this out. So stretching, light weights, and then long walks or cycling. When I'm home, I'm hiking, I'm kayaking, outdoors, nature, all that.
Yes, dude.
Yeah, but gym occasionally. I'd rather lift weights out in the parking lot and like blast some music, which they've done as well, you know, than sit in a gym. But I learned sometimes you need to look at your form and see what you're doing, so you don't screw it up. Because if you do it wrong, you might get clicks in your joints. And there's a lot more to weightlifting that I've realized recently that actually kind of makes me interested in it. So.
And you've really evolved your kind of wellness regimen over time. Like, what would your wellness regimen be, like, say, in your 20s?
Yeah.
Same for me.
Drink alcohol.
Yeah.
I've always liked hiking, though. I'll hike no matter what.
Amazing.
In nature, but cycling became a really big part of my life from like 2011 on. It was the way I dealt with. I was going through a really dark, suicidal, depressive spell. It was right around the time I was writing the first Times of Grace record, and the song on that record. Wow, what is it? How can I remember songs?
Hymns of a Broken Man?
It's on Hymn of a Broken Man, yeah. It is, but anyway, it's one of the songs. I'll think of it in a minute. And part of my suicide note that I was writing is in the song.
Whoa.
End of Eternity. Is it End of Eternity? No, it's the other one. Man, I'm getting old. I can't remember. But we were recording at the studio in Massachusetts, and behind the studio is this big, huge patch of woods with a river. And I found a broken down, old school, black and yellow Huffy 10-speed from like the 80s.
Whoa.
Just sitting out in the woods, like with vines growing in and everything. I ripped it out, I took it home, and I fixed it up, and I started riding it. And that is where I fell in love, and the endorphins would kick in, and I fought my depression by being physical. So now, like, if I'm in a rough headspace, I go out and I'll just go for like a 12-mile walk. I'll get on my bike and go for a ride. I'll get out in the mountains and hike. And just the physical activity switches this brain on, and you start to physically feel better and mentally feel better. So moving, sweating, nature, those three things, best therapy for depression and anxiety.
I'm so glad you overcame that, because you're so essential to this game, and you're
I'm glad I did too.
Yeah, we need you. We really need you guys out here
that.
in this game. You guys, the impact that you guys have had. That was before the Times of Grace record?
Yeah, it was right before I was going through a real rough spot.
And then you take that horrible low point in your life, and you make what is certainly, outside of Killswitch, one of the most well-respected albums. That Times of Grace record is a classic. It's just, I've never heard that before. And I just think that it's very extraordinary that you took that pain and turned it into what is in many ways, I think, a hopeful, optimistic record. I could be wrong about that.
No, I think it's a little bit of both. It's a melancholy there, but yeah, it is very much so like the triumph of coming through it, reflecting on it, but also the triumph of coming through it and finding your legs again, finding your spirit again. You know, that's why Hymn of a Broken Man, but the word hymn, to me, when I wrote that album title out, was like, there is a spiritual sense to it. You know, if you listen to like old school hymns, you know, because I'm a son of a preacher man.
Yes.
Some of those hymns are painful sounding. There's something, you know, sort of crying out to God, like, release me, save me. I'm a broken, wretched human. So that to me was all part of that. And it still is woven through everything that I write, you know, the imperfections of humanity versus our potential to be incredible, spiritual, enlightened beings.
Yeah. I got to tell you, that's the thing about AI is like music is inherently so spiritual. How can you ever, like, how can you listen to an AI song and feel the fact that there's a computer behind it that is literally making it based on things that have been inputted into it in the past? It's not coming through your spirit, you know. Talk about, you know, your faith and your spirituality and all of that. Like, I think that has always been so courageous about you is that, you know, not everybody is religious or spiritual or whatever. I am.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that was a very inspiring part about you, that you've always been so open. And even kind of on this record, you kind of talk about it a little bit as well on this Consequence. Yeah. I just think that's so unique about you.
Yeah, I would say, to be generic and sort of state my case, I believe in God. I believe that there is a greater being that has created, and there's intelligent design. And this is, you know, if you look at science, the way the molecules move, and my father said this best, like the voice of God. If God spoke into existence, if you look at molecular science, the fact that everything is, you know, not solid, it's when you keep going down into the molecular level, he says the voice of God is still speaking because it's just, everything's moving. Nothing is still.
Right.
I love that idea. To me, it's a bigger brushstroke than just how I was raised as a Christian. You know, I still love the traditions. I still respect and admire certain aspects of religion. But organized religion, I find so flawed. I find there's so much contradiction. People who claim to worship a God of love and they spew out judgment and hatred, and it's just counterproductive to what I think. If, you know, you believe in a God, you should do your best to live in that love that God gives us. So to me, love is my religion, if there is. And I know some people will like roll their eyes and like, because some people want to hear, you know, exact definitions of people's faith. So this is me no matter what. But in my life, the more I learn, the less I know. So I'm open.
Same.
I'm constantly opening to like reading about, you know, Buddhist texts, for example. You know, I'm fascinated by the practice of Buddhism, fascinated by the practice of ancient Eastern Christianity, the mystics, getting into deep meditation, just being open to like hear what people have to say, meeting people who are Muslim, who are a Buddhist monk. I spent a day with a Zen Buddhist monk in Japan, a full day. Whoa. He didn't speak English. I couldn't speak Japan. No words were spoken, but it was one of the most profound days of my entire life. And it made me realize there isn't just one answer for me.
Yeah.
There's a lot that we can learn, and I'm open to it. But I do believe that there's something much greater than all of us, and that exists in all of us. We can tap into it. When you have acts of kindness, when people do heroic things to help other people, that's when you're seeing the evidence of God.
Yeah.
It's not when somebody preaching from a pulpit, hellfire and brimstone. To me, I have a hard time with that. And I know there needs to be order, and I know, you know, without right and wrong, there's chaos, but I'm comfortable in my skin telling you that I don't know the answer.
Yep.
I find comfort in being humble enough to say, I'm open to the possibilities. I'm not sure exactly what I believe, but I'm on a path of faith and belief. And if you come at me and you have an idea or you want to talk about something, I'm curious.
Yeah.
We can have an actual discussion. I'm not going to get angry at you if you don't agree with me.
Amen.
And that's a problem with a lot of people. They dig their heels so hard into their faith that causes them to be ugly to other people.
Totally.
I don't get that. I don't want anything to do with that.
I love that. And that is a fantastic explanation. I couldn't agree more with that. I think that this idea that we have all of the answers, I think that it's really fascinating also, as you alluded to, studying world religions, because if you think about it, we've all been, we were separated by continents, and we were, so far apart, not even able to get to each other. And there's a lot of interesting similar themes or messaging or even origin stories in a lot of these world religions, which is really interesting to me when you look at they were 5,000 miles away and they were saying the same thing over there.
Yeah. Or thousands of years before this thought. Mm-hmm. And I encourage anybody who has an indoctrinated sense of faith to research some of that stuff. Look into it, read books on it, watch documentaries, be open and be fascinated. It doesn't mean your core values or your, faith changes necessarily. It might, but stay open to it. Don't just shut it down and that's evil. Be open to it. I find some of the most beautiful aspects of the spiritual thinking in First Nations and Native American culture.
Yes.
When they talk about the Great Spirit. I love that concept. And I've really looked into that, or even aspects of, nature speaking to us that there is a creator. I love all that stuff. That's why I spend so much time in nature. I feel closer to God there than I do in any pulpit or temple that I've ever been to, or cathedral. And I have been to a lot of amazing places. Nature speaks. That's where I really feel you can hear the voice of God. I do think it's great if you've got people who come together that believe the same thing to encourage each other. That's beautiful, but find solace in it as well. Take time to be alone, just you and your creator out in nature. I've had more moments of epiphany and revelation there than I ever have anywhere in some building.
You're so wise, man. You really are. I really appreciate your perspectives on this, because this is even for me, I'm big into personal growth, and I can tell that you've been on this path you're a very enlightened individual.
I've faced a lot of pain and a lot of darkness and a lot of demons, and I still do.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to find wisdom, because wisdom is knowledge in action. Wisdom is experience. You can read all the books you want to read, and that's knowledge, but applied knowledge, wisdom, living it. And traveling has been the huge thing for me. When I was the privilege of traveling with a band, on days off, I'm not just going to a bar and I'm going out and seeing stuff.
Yes.
I'm meeting people and I'm asking them, I'm this person, especially if you don't know who I am. I love this. I love on days off. I did this in Rome. I've done it in Japan. I've done it in other places where I'll come into a bar or a pub or a restaurant and I'll be elbow to elbow with some of the locals. And if they're speaking English and I can hear what they're talking about, the conversation's open. What's your life about? Tell me about you. My favorite thing in the world is asking people about what they think and what they feel and just being an observer. It just feeds my art. It feeds my mind. And it's really helped me gain wisdom to know why people of this certain region, of this certain faith believe this and how they were raised in the ancient stories, all that stuff. I'm fascinated by it. And I'm curious. And I think wonderment and curiosity are what is going to lead you into a better understanding of the human condition, of what God is or God isn't. Even science, people who are so hardcore into science, religion and science can meet up together.
Yes, agreed.
There's places where it definitely meets up. And I don't discount science either. I'm not one of those people who's
right,
I believe this, that's it. Bring it all to me. And that to me is what creates wisdom. And you can't have a wisdom without humility. And humility is super important. When it comes to spirituality and faith, the ego needs to die.
100%.
So you can learn and be open and go, oh yeah, I don't know everything.
Bro, here's a question. You talk about the ego. It's such an interesting concept. And I've met other people similar to you as well, where you meet certain rock frontmen that have very minimal egos, which is so kind of counter to what you would expect, because you almost have to have a certain ego to be a frontman of a big band as you are. How do you balance that?
I think coming from a very rooted family, number one, being surrounded by people who keep you in check. My wife is a great life coach, sort of won't take my shit at all. She's really sharpened my wit and kept me humble, but also my band members, if somebody's getting a little too rock starry or they're going to get put in check. This is a family, and that includes our crew, like band and crew. I'm just really blessed and privileged to live the life I've lived and go through what I've gone through. The least I can do is try to stay humble and try to help people with the privilege that I have had. And to me, that's what keeps me going. It's not just the music, it's lyrics, it's how I carry myself through the world. Like if you meet me out in the streets or, you know, at a restaurant or a pub or at a museum, which I've met people at art museums and are like, I'm like, hey, and we have a conversation, you realize I'm a real person.
Yeah.
You know, the whole rock star thing, like when I'm on stage, I exude something for sure, but I would say it's more just confidence in the fact that I know that I can put on a good show. It's entertaining versus like ritual. You know, I know there's an aspect of what I do that is meant to entertain, but there's also a ritualistic side of it where to me it's the words and the energy I'm putting out to the audience. I'm trying to help. I'm giving you my healing. I'm giving you my aura. I'm giving you this therapeutic thing that I know that we all need. So it's a mixture of those two. And then when you're on stage with someone like Adam, like it lightens the load. And I think it's a nice blend of having fun, you know, drinking
He's
beers.
so entertaining.
Yeah, he's great. That's why people say, oh, he's a front man. I'm like, no, I am one of two. He is 100% a front man. And I would say he's our leader. Like if there's a leader of this band, he's the John Lennon, absolutely. Because he's just such a genius and a great performer. Killswitch is not Killswitch without Adam D. Like he is, and I know you probably, if you ever saw this, you'd be like, oh, don't do that.
Oh, he doesn't like it.
He's so.
Is he shy? So what is he shy behind?
He just very
doesn't want the credit.
No, I mean he does, but he doesn't. He just doesn't want to be put on blast. He's very humble, but also, you know, he takes the piss out of himself a lot.
Yeah. But he's so appreciated in the metal world, man. I mean, everybody loves that guy.
Yeah, he's a very unique person.
Do you remember when he won on The Price is Right?
Oh yeah, my God. I was on my couch, like overjoyed, and you know, he was legally not able to say anything. So none of us knew. So we're all like, you know, I woke up early to watch the show in real time. And as I'm watching it, I'm like losing my mind. And then he won the whole thing. I'm like running around my living room like, holy shit. Of course, text him. He's like, "Oh no, I know." Yeah, that was one of the best days of his life, and you could tell because he watches that show religiously still. It's like we usually share hotel rooms, all of us, just to save money. So he's usually my roommate, and in the morning it's hot cup of coffee. It's either the Weather Channel or The Price is Right or some kind of a game show. That's his routine.
So he's like a trivia kind of guy.
Total. Loves it. That and sports. He's an intense man.
Yeah.
But he's got a quiet, very humble side of him too, you know, that nobody sees.
All these years later, you guys have toured the road for pretty much decades, and you guys are still sharing hotel rooms together. That's not the case with all bands. Maybe not even most.
We have the option now that the new thing is like if you're exhausted and you just don't want to hear somebody breathe, because that happens.
Sure.
Then you take a deduction and, you know, I think it's a $50 deduction and you can get, if within reason, you can get your own room. That's kind of like us. Because, you know, we're a bigger band, but touring is very expensive.
It is.
And for anyone out there who's like, oh, you guys are rich, like, stop.
Yeah.
I can't stand when it's like, oh, so-and-so's net worth is this, or this band made this amount of money. You don't see the number that we start with. We're talking like close to $1 million to get a band on the road with production like this. Like most bands are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes.
Then you have, you know, who you're paying, who's taking money out of your pocket. The venue's taking 30% of your t-shirt sales. Like everybody's got their hands in us. So yeah, we cut corners and stay humble. And, you know, on days off, sometimes we don't go out to eat. We eat what we have on the bus. We make sandwiches. Like, keep it humble, keep it cheap-ish. So that way, at the end of the tour, we have money to pay our bills.
100%. No, people don't realize, like, this is what I hear all the time. It's not, this is not an ATM machine out here.
COVID, it's way worse than it ever was. So we're putting out a lot more money than we ever did. Everything went up.
I still can't get over the fact that venues take percentages of t-shirts.
It's criminal.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's like, who do you think you are, dude?
Yeah.
Between your
you didn't even manufacture the shirts.
And also, you're making money on booze. You're making like, it's insane to me that you got your hands in our, you know, in our pockets. I never understand that, but
I think
without fail, we got to do it.
Yeah. I've never been able to understand that. And it just seems like the bands always get the short end of the stick every time, whether it's these streaming platforms or record deals or whatever you want to call it.
Streaming platforms is ridiculous. That's another, I know we could do a whole podcast on that. But here's the thing with it. Look, can you change it? Maybe. So it's all about keeping that conversation open, but you can't bitch and moan about it every interview. Sure. You know? And I know there's a reason why there's a percentage taken out because we're using your facility to sell something, but 30%.
I know.
And then you look at Spotify and you're giving us that much money for 1 million streams. Like, come on, man. You know, you talked about the film industry. Those guys protested, went on strike. What about us? Right. Where is like all these touring music? I wish we could strike, but I digress. You know,
no, you're right.
I don't want to harp too much on that because I know most people don't want to hear it, but there is another side to touring that people don't see. And they assume that we're all well off and driving fancy cars and with houses. Some people are, but not me.
a lot of bands, they don't realize it's a small business essentially. You know, you're running a business and you have to be able to pay your bills. And I can say that, you know, I think a lot of people get it though. I think a lot of people, you know, when you're buying a t-shirt, you're really supporting the band.
Oh, that's huge.
You know,
t-shirts are huge. It really helps our bottom line.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Buying merch at a show, you know, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, I've got Killswitch shirts from 15 years ago.
Oh, awesome.
You know, talk about Alive or Just Breathing, man. Like, what do you remember from that time? What do you remember from this album that has just stood the test of time for so many years?
Yeah, it was a lot of struggle. A lot of just wanting to put out a record that was the next level for us. You know?
You did.
But it came with a lot of baggage. It came with a lot of insecurity. The person that I was back then is so different from who I am now. I had a hard time making eye contact with people. I didn't really know how to use my instrument, which is, you know, it captured a raw sound and people like that. But long term, I got destroyed by not having proper technique and knowing how to use my instrument. But it captures a moment in time that was so unique. And we all say this in the band, we were at the right place at the right time. And that album just exploded. And, you know, for me to like walk away from it is insane to think about. But it all seemed to work out in the long run. But
gosh, that had to have been so hard though, man.
Well, I was just, you know, when anyone who's gone through actual real depression knows that you don't care about anything. I was numb. I didn't even know who I was. So when I left this band, I was a lost man for years. Even when I went on to do Seamless, which was the band that I joined after, I was numb. I was drinking. I was like, I didn't know who I was. I went through a real identity crisis. But none of that would have happened if I didn't leave the band. I needed to leave to figure out who I was. But in retrospect, man, I wish I could have smacked that 23-year-old kid in the head and be like, yo, what are you doing?
You left at 23?
I think I was like 23, 24.
So you were like still growing up.
Yeah. And also, a lot of people don't realize this. I grew up a pretty sheltered kid. Like up until like, you know, 10, 11 years old. I wasn't
not allowed to listen to metal and stuff?
Oh, yeah. Very sheltered. Like I always mention my brother and I were like the Flanders kids, you know, from the Simpsons.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was like, you know, and we had to go to Bible study. We had to like run the nursery. So if my parents would have people over and they'd be studying the Bible, my brother and I'd be taking care of the kids. Like we were 3 times a week church. My dad was church planning. We'd get up and move every couple of years to start a new church. Very much a, you know, rose-colored stained glass window life where you can't see out of it. So when I discovered punk and counterculture, it was like, oh yeah, this, I like this. What is this? You know, hardcore music was positive. It was aggressive and they were screaming. Minor Threat was the first band that really caught fire with me. It was like, this guy's talking about righteous stuff, but it's coming from a counterculture. And that was like, punk's my new religion. That changed me. But it took me years to unindoctrinate my brain and start to think for myself and be able to like digest things that I've been taught and had been shoved down my throat, to think critically about it. And does it work for me? Oh, this part doesn't work for me anymore. This belief that I've been told doesn't work for me. This one does. And to be able to like pull out of it and unindoctrinate myself, it took me probably into my 30s until I was like start to think clearly about my identity as who I was. Anyone who's been in a hyper-religious home or has been part of a cult, which I have friends that have come out of cults, which is wild.
Wow.
It takes therapy, it takes a long time for you to sort of like go, oh, this is who I am. And I wasn't in a cult. It wasn't that bad.
Sure.
To form your own ideas. And I think that's what led me to that existential depression during that time. I just put out a record with these deep lyrics and it caught fire and the world started to pay attention. And I was like, oh, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah.
I'm still not ready for this.
Yeah.
People stopped me in the streets and like
Yes.
wanting to know who I am or take a picture, you know, and back then it wasn't even cell phones, it was actual cameras, you know, and wanting my signature. I'm like, what is this?
Right.
So I couldn't handle it.
You had a hard time adjusting.
Very hard time with it.
I'm so glad you came back, and you guys are so different than most bands because you embrace the different eras. You know, you and Howard are boys, and you're very different. You know, the comparisons and all of that is irrelevant because we have both eras from you, and you've now been back in the band for over a decade, and these albums that you have, you know, the first album when you come back, you know, when In Due Time dropped, and I was just like, whoa, like this is just over the top. Did you feel, you know, did you put a lot of pressure on yourself, you know, on that first album back?
I did, but it was such a, from what I can remember, a joy. Like, it was just, I can't believe I get to do this again. You know, and it was difficult, and I'm sure Adam would have a gripe with how difficult it was working with me because, you know, I could only work for so long before I'm like, oh, I'm getting tired.
The vocal.
Getting tired, yeah. Which I can do longer now, but recording records is always painstaking for me, physically and mentally. But the end result's worth it.
It's phenomenal.
But with that record, my memory for putting that record out in the first couple of years back is just fun.
Yeah.
Like, it was just reuniting with my friends, drinking beers all over the world, just like having a great time and being in a tour bus and, you know, living this next level life. But that being said, I never disrespected Howard. I never thought ill of that because I knew I was standing on his shoulders. He brought this band to this level. Without him, this band would not be where it is. That's why we still sing his songs on a regular basis. How you can't not.
Right.
And then, you know, it took years for the band to sort of like figure out where they all were. It was a little awkward. And then when Howard started coming around again and like visiting us, and I actually get to sit down and talk to him. Because prior to that,
he was the best.
Prior to that, he was just the guy that I knew way back from a band called Driven, way back from a band called Blood Has Been Shed. Friendly, see him in the scene, respect him. He's a beast on the in vocals, but never like, we weren't homies.
Right.
Like, I didn't really know him. When I started to actually get to know him and I saw, you know, the kinks in the armor, the fact that he's just another guy, because people view him as like, you know, his voice, he's just the voice of steel, and, you know, and I respect him so much as a vocalist, but getting to know him and like seeing his sense of humor, his self-deprecation.
He's so funny.
And him sort of going to me, like, it was hard for me to sing your shit too, man. Like, and giving me credit.
Of course.
And even just the last time he was out, he came out and sang Signal Fire with us. The interaction I had with him after, it's reciprocal. There's respect there. He's part of the family.
Yes.
And you don't have to like me as a vocalist. You can be like, I'm a Howard guy. That's fine. It doesn't bother me anymore. It used to bother me a lot because I was insecure about it.
Just comparison is the thief of joy.
It is, and it's so...
It's not fair.
We're way different.
You're genuinely very different.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
I agree.
It's not fair to either one of you.
It's not, but it is what it is. People are going to continue.
People have gotten over it.
Yeah, well, and then people still talk about it, but like, I'm not paying attention anymore.
Right.
I'm not. It's fine. I like what I do. I think I'm decent at it now.
I think you're better than
I got better.
I actually think you've always been good. It's interesting. It seems like maybe you feel like you weren't that good during Alive or Just Breathing or something.
No.
I don't know.
No, I wasn't that good through a lot of my
It's so crazy, man. It's like, that to me is like a classic record, bro. Like, it's like a banger to me. And, it's interesting how different artists I talk to will view certain eras that I like hold in extremely high regard. And they're like, it wasn't that good. And I'm like, what? Like, everyone I know loves that record.
Everybody's got their own weird critical voice with them, but I can say comfortably this new record, I'm proud of it. I feel good. I feel like I'm finally getting good.
I love to hear that. I love to hear that because, you know, you said earlier, you're like, us are older. I'm like, you guys aren't old. I hope you feel like you guys have a lot of gas in the tank because we need Killswitch in the world, man. We need y'all. And this new record, y'all, this Consequence is out everywhere now. I don't just say this. I don't even recommend music I don't like. Like, this album is phenomenal. This Consequence, I've linked to it in the description. This is a show day, so you've taken a lot of time with me today, and I greatly appreciate it. And it's an honor to sit here and talk to you, man.
Oh, thanks, man. It's easy when it's a conversation. It doesn't feel like an interview, even though there's cameras. It's to me, it's this. I like this. And I don't get, to be able to talk on this depth on a regular basis because I'm saving my voice. We've got shit to do. So it's been a pleasure. And
It's been an honor.
thank you to everybody who watches and cares and made it through the interview.
And go see Killswitch Engage on tour, coming to a city near you as well, y'all. And we're just so grateful y'all are still out here going stronger than ever.
Doing our best, man.
Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hell yeah.